The Reckoning. Judgment awaits you. You. Like a lift? A little elevator music to calm the nerves? Will you be elevated or dropped like a stone into the abyss? Going up? Climb aboard. Come ride the elevator of life? No! You've ridden that already, haven't you? Death has claimed you, and now you await your fate. So plead your cases. It's such fun watching you worms squirm. The Reckoning.
So, what about the meek? I say they've got a bloody cheek. Vanity and presumption. The only thing they are going to inherit is an inferiority complex. Okay, now you've just seen the film, now listen to the book. I'm not going gentle into that good night. Oh, I see, you recognise that, eh? Well, don't charge me with unoriginality as well as everything else. You lot haven't got an original thought and all your fucked up bonces put together. Original sin, yes. And I see angels and demons here, heaven and hell, but where the bloody hell is purgatory, Maybe I don't want to check into either of your eternal care homes, and more to the point, where in God's name is atheistic oblivion? Come on, put me out of your misery. Eh? I knew it. Cowards. All my life surrounded by your fairy tales, variations on the same theme, and so I chose to ignore the lot of them. I mean, I was born to a good Christian family, but the dude born in the crib down the road in Arabia was born into a Muslim gig, but there's only the one true God, isn't there? So one of us must have randomly got the golden ticket to heaven, and the others the bum rush to hell? Religion? Stop that, it's silly! It's a joke, and the joke's on me now. I demand oblivion. Say it loud, say it proud. I've done all I wanted to do down there, and I want the game to be over. And you lot. You dullards, you demons, you really hate pride, don't you? And not just the gay variety, child's death, pestilence, and famine, but yeah, overweening pride. Hell forfend? Because it saw off your boss Lew. From a cushy number at the right hand of God, eh? But look where pride got him. He created his own realm of hell, and that went to star on in many a film and ruin the psyches of millions with guilt and fear and a phobia of apple trees. That's still an achievement. And you angelic upstarts, don't drink, don't smoke, what do you do? Don't you think you're number 9, Jesus, took pride in his carpentry, his occasional tables, let alone his water and wine party trick? You do nothing but judge. But what did I do? I did an imperial fuckton. I wouldn't trade my ID and my ego for a shed load of your super egotistical piety. I bet you gave poor old Icarus an even harder time when he was up in the Lilliputian kangaroo court, but if he hadn't took to do some hovering too close to that sun, would the Wright brothers have ever lifted their eyes to the horizon? I'll tell you what I did. I proudly carved the first boat to get us to the next continent when all around in my tribe thought I was a bumptious idiot. I was the proud woman who stood out in and against the weight of the man's scientific world, so that now we have the X-rays to see through your paper-thin souls. I was the uppity working-class genius that formed the greatest popular music beat combo of all times from a flat in Prestwich. I did all this and more, and I will be the vainglorious one that one day believes I can cure aging, so that one day your courtroom will have no souls available for you to crush anymore. I was expecting to see that milksop St. Augustine here. Too busy bathing in his piety, I suppose, but it was indeed he who said, "It was pride that changed angels into devils. It is humility that makes men as angels." But he was proud of himself when he came up with that, and he took the rest of the day off, didn't he? Well, I'd rather be me than an angel or a devil. Any day, any day, any day, any day. And so, I am charged with all the pride in the world, am I? The deadly sin of pride. Well, I charge you with the deadly sin of being boring. Angels do your best, devils do your worst. I don't recognise this chord, for I am Hugh Briss.
Is this some sort of joke? Have I sinned? Of course I have. All the time. Every day since I was about 5. Why? Because I'm a human being, just like, well, to be honest, not like you. But, and there is always a but in my world, I do have an excuse for my greatest sin. The only one that people, well, things like you would be interested in, and that's the big one, murder. But here is the but. My dad had a stroke. He recovered but lost a lot of movement down his left hand side, but Mags and my mum managed. In time he began to deteriorate mentally as well, but still she managed. What she couldn't manage was 15 years after his stroke, she had one of her own. Killed her instantly. My dad did not manage very well at all. Eventually, he began to get really ill, and his brain began playing tricks on him. About a year after my mum's funeral, I got a phone call one evening. It was around 10 and it was my dad, scared. He wanted me to come round to his, so I went round and I could see how scared he was. He said there was someone in the house there with him, and he was terrified. I looked around just for show, and there was nothing. So I made him some tea, and he sat down by the telly in his chair. We got to talking, and he's telling me that Megs, my mum, was here, and she was waiting for him in the pub, but he had no shoes, and he went to look for them, and when he comes back, she was gone and left him, and he started to cry, and I was getting upset, and so I told him my mum was waiting for him, but not in the pub, and he would see her soon, and he seemed okay. Then he went to the toilet, and he was gone about 10 minutes, till he shouts me, and I go in, and he's standing there with his trousers down, and well, anyway, I get him cleaned up, and I make the bed in the front room, and he says he wants to go back to the gardens where we used to live when I was a kid. I took a load of the warfarin tablets he had for his blood, and I mashed them up with a bit of whiskey and boiling water. Well, he spat it out, said it tasted like piss. So I sat at the end of the bed just talking to him, and he begins to calm down. And then he just lies back and closes his eyes, and I can hear him breathing really hard, and his chest's going up and down. It's like he was having a bad dream. So I just sat at the end of the bed watching. Then he begins to get quieter and quieter and starts to settle down. After a while, it goes really quiet, and I look at his chest, and slowly it stops moving. And I look down at him, and for about 5 minutes, nothing in the house makes a sound. So he reaches to pull the sheet over his face, and then the bastard grabs my fucking hand really hard and looks at me as if he knew I was waiting for him to die. And he looked lost. I'd never seen him looking like that. And I thought of the past month since my mum died, and how he was getting worse, and how easy it would be if he just drank the bleeding drink. And I just looked at the pillow. And that was it. The end. He was so ill by now, nobody ever suspected me, the dutiful son. So judge me if you will. Was it murder? I don't think so. But I'm not the judge here. You, well, whatever you are, you're the judges. So go ahead and judge. But don't expect me to feel guilt or remorse. And it's too late now anyway. I did what I did, and I'd do it all over again. So if you're expecting me to feel guilty, you'd be wasting your fucking time.
So, how did I find myself here, in the court of the dead, my destiny decided by angels and demons? My pride and anger led to a tragedy, but it was the trust and love for my fellow man that was my downfall. My name is Edward. 5 days ago I had something money can't buy. True friendship. I met Nigel way back in boarding school. We became pals straight away, and we knew that our bond was something special. So much so that when we were 10 years of age, we became blood brothers. We were inseparable. From school kids to fully grown adults, working, drinking, and of course, chasing girls. One day during a long hot summer, I caught one of those girls, Olivia. She was beautiful, and I knew she was going to be my wife. And as for my bromance with Nigel, well, strangely enough, that became stronger too. So much so that when I married her, she suggested to bring Nigel along on our honeymoon. Separate rooms, of course. We're not weird. And anyhow, she exclaimed, he could help carry the luggage. Our honeymoon troika in Thailand turned a few heads and raised a few eyebrows, but we knew that our friendship was special. Olivia and I bought a nice 4-bedroomed house in the park, but as we rattled about our big new shiny abode, we realised that there was something missing, and so Olivia suggested that Nigel should become our lodger. And anyhow, she exclaimed, he could help carry the mortgage. And so, Nigel made our new house a home. 5 days ago, Nigel and I went to the local hostelry to quaff a pint or two. 2 young ladies politely seated themselves at our table. They were very friendly, chatty and good company. They introduced themselves as Janice and Pamela. After a short while, Janice removed her jacket, and in a synchronised undertaking of curiosity, Nigel and I took a swig of ale together and fixed our stares simultaneously at the etching that adorned the left breast of our new companion. Noticing that she was becoming uncomfortable, I apologised for our ungentlemanly gaze and passed comment on her delightful tattoo. Whereupon, to my surprise, Nigel gave what appeared to be an informed explanation of the ink symbol and its origin. He suddenly stopped the impromptu tattoo tutorial and stared at me, not unlike a rabbit in the headlights. He then speedily made an exit to the bar, a move I found most peculiar and somewhat suspicious considering we had a table full of ale, and more so, it wasn't his round. Janice went on to explain that the symbol is one of unity and love, and that it should be located in a special place. Hers was in loving memory of her long-past mum and dad, and I was somewhat reassured when she explained that it was indeed above her heart, and not above her left breast. I clarified that my interest was due to the fact that my wife received the same tattoo whilst honeymooning in Thailand. Janice smiled, but her initial elation subsided. She pondered on my revelation, and then endeavoured to direct the conversation elsewhere. However, her somewhat inebriated pal Pamela, who'd had one steamboat too many and didn't mind sailing close to the wind, pushed the conversation on, and was anxious to know where my wife's special place was. I tentatively whispered that it was below her bikini line, to which she loudly and excitedly bellowed, "Oh wow, it's in her lady garden." She continued to tell me that no two tattoos were the exact same, because of the initials. She gestured towards the three-pointed symbol on Janice's breast, explaining that the initial on each point were the initials JMD, Janice, Mum and Dad, and it represented the Holy Trinity of togetherness. She eagerly inquired about the recipients of my wife's three initials, in which I told her that it was actually a word. One. The lovely Janice once again made a futile attempt to exit the subject, as pissed pal Pam continued the inquisition. "It can't be a word, it must be the initials of three special people, signified on each point of the star, and shared in their special place. They're the rules," she excitedly declared. The conversation fell silent, as my eyes turned curiously to Janice, who burned hers into Pamela's, who naively turned hers back to mine, and as one, we all turned them to the hapless Nigel, who had just returned with our surplus refreshments. The only thing missing was the drum roll from EastEnders. The following conversation was somewhat vague. I remember Nigel making an unsuccessful attempt at damage limitation before scurrying out into the night. I shortly followed him and returned home. They both sat in silence. Olivia was crying. I scowled and walked back out. She followed. We stopped near the old bridge. I glared at her and meekly muttered, "You told me that the one stood for us, our unity, not our initials, Olivia, Nigel and Ed. What was Nigel doing in our special place?" She snapped. "Our special place was always crowded, and you made it that way." We hurled some words at each other, and then we hurled each other against the bridge wall. It crumbled, and we tumbled into the dark. We struggled in the cold water as we sank deeper and deeper. We both realised that this was actually the first time that we'd ever been alone with each other. And then we realised that this was beautiful, so we stopped struggling and we kissed, and then we smiled. So, my fate is in your hands. My anger and envy got me here, but it also allowed me the opportunity to share my special place, alone with my wife for the first time. And wherever I am placed will be fine, just as long as I'm with my Olivia.
Into the lift, you flaming grubs. It's judgment time. No point stabbing that up, Button Hamlet. You're all going down. Fire and brimstone for you lot. Pineapple.
You've been listening to
The Trial of Hubris,
written by Steve Titley,
performed by Lew Freeburn.
followed by
Murdering Dad,
written by Charles Rogan,
and performed by Andy Edwards.
and finally
A Special Place,
written by Steve Bird.
and performed by Luke Morgan.
Sound and production by
Francis Brodie Aldridge.
and Ted Gray on Make It Right production for Make It Heard.